Hello and welcome to the American Dream Factory podcast from Build. I am here with the one and only Julian Guthrie.
Hello.
We're pumped to have you. This is going to be a super fun conversation. For those who are listening, Julian is, in my book, she's honestly an incredibly sweet person. And she's a good friend, but she's also legendary. And she'll say, "No, not me." But the truth is that she legitimately is legendary. She has multiple best-selling books. She is an incredible journalist that's been nominated multiple times for a Pulitzer, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And kind of covered the whole tech boom in San Francisco. She was boots on the ground, has had the privilege and the trust of a lot of the billionaires of Silicon Valley and astronauts to be able to tell their stories. And that's something pretty special. And now she's the founder of an AI company that is helping people tell better stories and not get themselves in trouble. And so we'll unpack her being a founder, a mom, a journalist, everything under the sun. And maybe to start it off, let's talk about storytelling. And tell me this: you have chosen excellence in your life as a founder, as a leader, as a worker, a human. What stories do you tell yourself, or what conditions created that environment for you that you're on that trajectory?
I'm really grateful that I am resilient and that I'm an optimist, because I think that shapes our storytelling as well as curiosity. And I'm kind of
Uh-oh. We lost Julian. 1 second. It says Julian is gone. And I'm going to text her this, and we'll see.
Hey, I'm back. I don't know what happened. I was kicked out.
I don't know either.
That was weird. Okay, so we're back.
Or who knows what aliens. It's all of them.
Who knows exactly? But I'm back. Storytelling. What are the stories I tell myself? I'm always in pursuit of excellence, but I'm always in pursuit of learning, of asking a lot of questions, of listening. So I think it's really I have a belief in something that I actually learned from an interview that I did with Larry Ellison for my second book. Larry being the co-founder of Oracle, and he is very into Japanese art, philosophy, history, and he told me about the Kaizen, Kaizen, which is the Japanese principle of kind of assiduous, constant incremental gains. And so I'm a big believer in that you don't go from 0 to 60 in 1 second, that it's one step every day. If you can advance in one way, one step, make connections, make an impact in people's lives, get a little bit healthier, add something to your knowledge base, do something good for others. So I think it's a combination of trying to make gains every day, and bring people up. I think that going to stories, like the stories we tell ourselves, are really important. How do we tell other people's stories in a way that that can expose, can uplift, can connect, can have a profound effect, or can have that kind of Kaizen incremental effect. So,
we lost Julian again.
Oh, now the camera switched. How strange.
This is so funny. This is heads up. Julian Guthrie's recording will now continue on a new track. We're going to figure this out.
We are going to figure this out. Maybe I'll come back in.
Sure.
I'll come back in.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. We'll figure it out. I'm not overwhelmed. It's all part of the journey.
Let me see here on the camera. Wait. It's not letting me switch cameras.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Let me maybe.
You could drop in and out if you want.
Yeah. I don't know why this is happening. And we want to be on camera because it's so much fun to see each other.
Yeah. But if we can't, we can just go to pure audio too. That's no. She'll be back. So while Julian is popping back in, quick thing that I want to update you on. If you don't know, if you go to buildjournal.club, you'll be able to see all the different content that we have from media. So we do articles, we have videos, podcasts, we have a software platform, and live events as well. And from the live events, a few that you'd want to know about wherever you are in the world.
Okay.
Coming up May 1st, we have a summit, and then in August, we're doing a camp out too. So you can come to those. If you want more information, go to buildjournal.club. And Julian's back.
Okay. So I hope this won't happen again. Can't promise it,
We're good. So
but I'll pop back in.
Yeah, so the Larry Ellison thing and Kaizen, it sounds like it's kind of like it's compounding interest of choices driven by story that are uplifting and positive is kind of a principle you took from maybe success, but also like for your own life. Where two questions around that. One is, was your childhood and were you framed, I guess, in a life that always pointed you in the direction of optimism, or was it just like in your genetic code, or did you have like a fundamental moment that you're like, all right, I'm going to choose to be an optimist because I realize I have a choice? And then secondarily, do you have like a system that just keeps you on the rails? Because I have some days where like it's pretty crappy, and like I still do my workout. I still try and like I've designed systems that make it really hard for me to screw up, because it's like I have my like own little playground I designed because I know I am healthiest, happiest, and most productive if I stay in the zone. Do you have systems or like a routine in the morning that keeps Julian like?
You know, as a journalist, I got to kind of parachute into so many people's lives and see lives that were different from mine. And I grew up in the Spokane area and then went away to San Francisco and wanted to be a big city journalist. And I wanted to be exposed to everything I'd never been exposed to um, in a smaller town or more homogenous environment at the time. And I wanted to seek out the weird and the different and the I don't know about the term progressive, but things I hadn't been exposed to, thinking, um, ways of life. And so this answers kind of the question of, as a child, was I, kind of, did I come into optimism or did I feel optimistic? I think one thing is, I was blessed with a very healthy childhood. So I have a very healthy mindset. And I came to learn, especially with my reporting, that that is a great blessing, and that mental health, mental stability is not a given with so many people. And so I'm sincerely grateful that I grew up in a family where there was a lot of opportunity and a lot of love and support. And I know that that's not the case with a lot of people. So I have deep empathy. So I think it was like really being a reporter that showed me how grateful I am for the very solid kind of foundational upbringing that I had, that allowed me to be resilient and to feel, strong and to feel determined. Because to do anything big in life, there are no shortcuts. As you know, it's really hard work. And I've had a lot of dark days as the founder of this company, or writing books, or even journalism, where, there are tough stories that you're telling, you're trying to achieve excellence. Um, and so I think it's this combination of being blessed with a very healthy childhood that gave me a sense of I can achieve things and I feel good. And in terms of like routines, um, having a little bit of morning time rather than going straight, I don't know about you, but like rather than going straight into meetings, at 8 a.m., although we have to do a lot of calls now with New York. So it's like sometimes 7 a.m., but trying to set aside that time to think, to get my mindset ready for the day, to think about not just the to-do list, but how to elevate, how to elevate our team, how to motivate our team, and kind of what's next.
Yeah. Yeah, I think morning.
I don't know. What about you? What's yours?
Yeah, like morning routines are so sacred.
Mm-hmm.
I've discovered, and it was like this. The book I read that really helped me chew on it was "Own the Day, Own Your Life," and it's by Aubrey Marcus. And the book, in it, what it does, it kind of breaks down 24 hours in a day into the key functions of just being fully human, and kind of how to have optimal biohacks and like best practices and systems, and then challenges you to kind of architect your own perfect day, and winnows it down to the idea of, if you're struggling with a full 24 hours, just wake up perfect once. And then the other one was, and then go to bed perfect once. And then you never have to do it ever again in your whole life. Just try it once. And the sneaky trick of it was, you do it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's better ways to do life. And I'm not really thinking about it. And for me, that was like my wake up call was, in my 20s, I remember waking up with 20 minutes to get to a meeting because I was up way too late. And then I'm throwing on pants and running out of the house, and you feel like an idiot. And now, I've realized, there's a way better system. And so for me, it's get enough sleep. I try and get at least 8. It's 7.5 is like, I know I'll be fine, but I start going below 7 and start getting into like the 6s. And if I do it too consistently, it trashes me. Then the other one is, it's get light in my eyeballs, like as soon as I wake up.
Yes.
And I have a system around sound as well, where I will have, it switched cameras again.
There we went again. This is so mysterious. Okay, I'll just turn this off for a minute because it's.
I can do it too. We can both go no cameras. It's fine. It's audio.
Okay, not as fun, but it's okay. I don't want it to keep glitching out.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's behaving badly.
Exactly, it's technology. But and after that, then I have sound too. I turn on water and birds on my speakers, and I listen to like birds and streams while I make my bed, and then I have a short meditation, and it's this kind of ritual of fluids. Then after that, I'll start doing this water and athletic greens, and then get a workout in, and it's sacred to me. Like, you don't screw with that, because it's how I make sure I stay on the rails, because it does matter, and I listen to usually podcasts or a book while I do my workout, because I'm getting my brain right, and I'm treating my body right at the start of the day with meditation and water and light and routines and discipline that help me have little wins that set me up for a day of a strong foundation.
Yes, I love all that. And I do think even though, we live in the Pacific Northwest, where there's not a lot of sunlight, even going out and, putting your face to the light in the morning, even when it's cloudy, there's a lot that's known about how it really sets your circadian rhythm in the right way.
Yeah. And going outside in the rain, or when it's a little bit cold, we stay in these comfort cuddle bubbles where everything is soft. Everything's 72 degrees and there's no breeze, and we can be all cozy, when reality, we come from an ancestral breed of human that lived in the elements and journeyed long distances, and we were stimulated by that and learned how to come alive in that. And I just think it is pretty silly that we don't do hard things the same way. And so I agree with you, getting out and putting your face in the light. It does help.
Well, you're one who I find you very inspiring in how you are very adventuresome. Like you're a person who seems to find adventure wherever you are, or embrace it or seek it. And sometimes that is with the elements. Like, I love to jog and work out outside. And so, in the winter, it's like there's ice, it can be a little precarious, but I love it when it's snowing, when it's raining.
Yeah.
It's like this sensory overload that's really fun. And it is something that jolts you out of the everyday.
Yeah.
Those experiences we need.
It breaks the monotony.
Yeah, it does. It breaks the monotony. Then when you come back to what you were doing, you're refreshed, you're invigorated. You're like, yeah, that was pretty awesome. I can tackle the elements. I can be in the midst of it. It's freezing. I'm running. It's icy.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Well, I think to that point too is it's agency, right? It's that if you choose to do something that breaks the loop, you're choosing with agency to do something that is different, maybe hard, adventurous, and helps you realize as you're doing something that feels kind of almost naughty, where it's like, oh, I'm supposed to have a day that's just bland, and you're like, I'm going to do something spicy and different.
Yes.
And then in that, you then, when you choose to go back to the other thing, you chose to go back to it. So there's this almost like it's tricking yourself coming back to story. You're by spicing it with a little thing, you're choosing the thing that you might see as monotonous because you leave the thing that was spicy to go back to the thing you love. And if you do the thing you love all day long, it tastes bland, right? If you eat the same thing every day, it starts to become bland. And I think we need that for story. Even it's like that spice of life, or we end up just kind of
We
stuck.
do.
Yeah,
I mean, what is your story? Everybody has a story. I say I love underdog stories, but in our own ways, we're underdogs. We're trying to achieve something that is difficult. It can be whatever profession. It can be as a parent. It can be as a college student entering the world. It can be as a retiree. Um,
yeah.
it's something, but everybody has a story, and that's what's driven me throughout my life and career. Is I just love to hear people's stories, and I know, Nick, you do too, where you're always asking people like, what's your story, man? And that's what we should all do, like, but there's a saying, you have two ears and one mouth, because we're supposed to listen more than we are talk. And how can we listen to other people's stories? And you think about, in a practical way, what is your story and how to tell your story. You have let's say, I arrive at a hotel in Las Vegas. I'm checking in. Across the room, I see Jensen Huang, which is, I think, the photo you used with.
Yeah, yeah, I love
um,
that.
and I was checking in, and I'd had a long flight, early morning, up at 4 or something like that. And anyway, I look and I see him, and of course, he's like, in this Steve Jobs fashion sense of, Steve Jobs had the black turtleneck, Jensen wears the black leather jacket, and he's unmistakable. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish checking in here. I'm not even going to finish checking in. I'm going to go beeline right over to him. He was just standing there in the lobby by himself. And I thought, this is an opportunity. But in that moment, like, what is the story? You're going to get maybe a minute with him before somebody comes and takes him away.
Yeah.
And, so what is the story you're going to tell when you meet that person who could impact your goals?
So what was the story? So
Well,
what did you say?
for me, it was, I'm so
Sweet
impressed.
jacket, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm like, wow, what an impressive journey you've been on. And I said, I read somewhere or listened to something with you where you were asked if you would start NVIDIA today, knowing what you knew then, and you said no. And he said, no, it's just way too hard.
Yeah.
And so I said, I completely agree. It's really far more difficult to build a company from scratch than anyone knows. And so then he said, what's your company? And I said, Alfie. And we, you know about grammar check and spell check. Well, we detect for harm in digital communication. We have built our own AI. And he's like, wow, that's pretty neat. So we started talking, and he was asking me a lot of questions, and then he gave me some connections within NVIDIA. So it was one of those moments where it's like,
Awesome.
know what your story is, whether you are, interviewing for a job, whether you have that pitch ready for the person that's like, oh my gosh, standing across the room, and you have that moment, like, forget checking into the hotel, leave your luggage there if you have to, just go.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Spice it up, but be prepared too, right? And you're good at architecting and pulling out story. I mean, good is an understatement. You've been nominated as one of the best in the world, and you've also written books that are quite literally on the best-selling lists. So you are the best in multiple categories at storytelling and crafting. And when you think about your San Francisco kind of storytelling days,
Mhm.
because you don't live in the Bay anymore, but that's kind of like the place where you got your professional chops.
For sure.
Yeah, and like I mean, how many years were you at the Cron?
20.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Wow.
did.
And
It
what
was
window?
awesome.
What years? Yeah, yeah.
Up until 17.
Awesome. I mean,
18. It was such an incredible job, and journalism was very different then.
yeah.
The fact that there were facts was
Well, tech was
undisputed.
different then too, right?
Tech was totally different. It was a dazzling occupation if you're a curious person, and I'm a big believer more than ever now in the power of the fourth estate and the need for it. And I did reporting, enterprise reporting that exposed fraud, that sent people to jail, but that also elevated people out of circumstances. That's really again where I learned my empathy, and I also know that there are always at minimum of two sides to a story. So don't go in with a preconceived idea about how this person, what this person is, who this person is, whether it's a gang leader from the Mexican mafia who I did a series on, or whether it's a Larry Ellison, or whether it's some of the women I wrote about in the book Alpha Girls. Don't go in with a preconceived idea. Go in with an open mind, do your research, but then learn yourself. And it was just a great job. I mean, I loved it, and then it got when you've done everything you can possibly do in a certain job, and when you start to, like, if you see an editor approaching your desk, whoever that editor may be in your life,
Yeah.
just picture it like, and you're kind of dreading it because you've already done the story he's going to suggest. That's the time to move on. And for me, I was writing books on the side, so I was working full time at the newspaper, raising my amazing son, and writing these big books on this. It wasn't, I don't know if it was, I think I had two jobs basically, or three jobs. And, it was, but it was just really exciting. And I think you have to, you also have to show you are authentic.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be authentic. You have to be authentically. And again, Nick, I see you this way a lot. You're so authentic with people and non-judgmental, and you come in with an open mind. You genuinely want to learn from people.
Thanks.
And for me also, I have a love of words, of language. I was a word geek as a kid, loved reading the dictionary. Very weird, yes, and still am exactly that way.
Yeah.
um, so it was this combination. It was this belief that the stories we tell can change our lives, and they can change the lives of those around us.
Amen. It's so true. And you're gifted at it. And I mean, what
Well,
a
only because that Kaizen principle, only because I worked at it literally every day for 20 years. I
yeah,
wasn't gifted when I started. I was bumbling around in it.
so true. It's so true. Well, and not that I knew you were bumbling around, but it's so true that you learn your superpower because it's a joy for you to work it out.
Yeah.
And you're a grand example of that, of really having a superpower around words, and you've made it your love. And it sounds like it was a love from being even a young child. And your years there, I mean, what a zone of the late 90s to
Oh,
like the
amazing.
whole up till the late 2017. Like,
Yeah.
holy smokes. I mean, it was, you name it, SpaceX, PayPal, Meta, Alphabet. Like, you got to watch everybody bumble around in the dark and try and figure it out from the startup perspective. And you got to watch San Francisco really in its boom moment.
For sure.
I went to San Francisco first time ever when I was in middle school. And so it would have been in like the mid 90s.
Uh-huh.
And I fell in love. Like, I absolutely fell in love with the place because it was this,
I did too.
yeah, great food and like beautiful and just like a very interesting place. And similarly, journalism, you talk about it with this like with a love and a joy of it. And you probably can see where I'm going with this question. Uh, Speaking of storytelling, what the hell happened to journalism in San Francisco, right? And
I
like,
know. I
and
know.
how did tech? Well, and here's the loop question, right? Because we're going to talk about your tech startup, and this isn't pointing fingers, but this is like, I'm curious from your perspective as someone who was in it. It's such a crucial time in storytelling, and like you're a seasoned journalist, well connected. Tech has had a significant impact on journalism, and tech has had a significant impact on the culture of San Francisco, both creating outsized pressures I don't think anyone saw coming. And you have an interesting intersection of being in both. How would you describe the story of what's happened?
Well, for journalism, starting with that, and then getting to what's happened to our beautiful, beautiful, glistening, glittering San Francisco. What happened there to tarnish it? It's going to come back, I hope. But in terms of tech and journalism, it it really changed the it moved the focus away from the quality of the story to the um, buzzworthy, eyeball
Clickbait.
clicks,
Yeah, clickbait.
clickbait stuff. It
Yep.
really moved it, and I saw that happening in the last few years that I was at the newspaper, and we actually had um, a screen up in the newsroom where it was trending like stock tickers, and where it was like clicks, which stories were generating the most clicks. And I started to get very wary of where journalism was going, or disappointed, or worried, all of the above, because there was much less emphasis on the quality of the story, the quality of the reporting, the quality of the writing, because it was going as we said, to this clickbait, shorter and shorter stories as well. So there was a time in journalism where we would spend a year on a series of stories, and that's actually how my first book came about, because I was able to work on this lengthy story about this crusade against the Catholic Church in San Francisco. And I was able to work on that for a year, and then it turned into like a 3 or 4 part series, and got such overwhelming response from readers. It was very in depth, that I thought I need to turn this into a book, and I turned it into a book proposal and sold that. But so that was the direction that things were going. Now, leap forward a decade, and now journalism has been undermined because of this allegation, assertion, erroneous one, that there are no facts and that it's fake news. And that's very disturbing, because there are facts. Facts exist, and we need to pursue them with more vigor than ever.
Yeah.
So that's what was happening in terms of tech and journalism, and in terms of kind of the tech in the culture of San Francisco. I think it was something that it was there was so much money. It's such a city in a region of haves and have-nots, of
Yeah.
extremes, and where you would have, and I saw both. I was very privileged to see both, and to navigate both worlds of despair and deprivation and hardship and anguish, as well as the greatest successes and displays of wealth and
Yeah.
all of that. So I think what happened was, and I loved San Francisco. There was a time when I was there, when I had a Vespa, and I'd cruise around at night, and I'd go down to the Tenderloin and go through it, and it was fine. It was fine. It was not what it is now. And then the homeless problem began, and it began, I think, with ideas of compassion, of how do we house the unhoused, and then it turned into an industry that had to feed on itself, and more money was needed to support this industry, and there was more and more infrastructure to support this homeless industry.
Yep.
And so it perpetuated itself, and it grew, because there was an industry that was established that was not going to go away.
Yeah.
But I think it came from a place of goodness, in terms of, we want to care for people, we want to house people, and
Empathy. Yeah.
yeah. And then it went in the wrong direction. I
Yeah.
think it's got to come back. It's got to come back, so that there is a level of safety, decency, where you don't send your friends to San Francisco and they come back and say, "Oh my God, there's so many homeless," and that's all they remember about the city.
Yeah.
It
Because it
has
is
to
such
come
a
back.
magical place. I mean, the
It
Palace
is.
of Fine Arts, and
Uh-huh.
it's wild. I was down there and was at the Palace, and then kind of walking along, and just watch someone smash out the window in front of a hotel and like steal bags out. And then the more interesting thing was the dialogue on the street, because some of us were just completely gobsmacked at how it happened so fast in broad daylight. And then somebody said it's just redistribution of wealth. And an older gentleman,
Mhm.
and he and I had this conversation. I said, I'm really shocked by this. I don't understand what you're saying. And I said, I'd love to. Can we walk and talk? And we walked multiple blocks together.
That is
And
so you.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And he told me his defense for it was, you know, there's illegal wage theft on people. And I said, yeah, probably, but that doesn't make that right. I was like, let's deal with the wage theft. And he said, well, then there's this. And he just kept going on and on about all these injustices in capitalism that
Hmm.
create downward pressure on middle class and the poor. And his solution was really just similar. It's coming from a place of empathy, but his answer was lacking in strategy and integrity. It was just throw money or um, whatever they want at the problem, and that's fair. And I think in a lot of situations, when you feel fear and it's someone in a position of power or capital, I think a lot of people with empathy just threw money, not strategy or elbow grease at the problem. So instead, it was like, here's money, go solve it, government or someone else, versus since the city's been literally going through a collapse, now people have to put their elbow grease into it. And you're seeing these great leaders step up and
Mhm.
put their backs into it and like own your city. This is your town, and it's, you can't just throw money that you cried on, and so that's considered your gift to the city because you had tears for empathy and then covered your dollars in tears and threw them over the fence. Like, you've got to show up and choose how you invest with action, time, and strategy. And it feels like San Francisco's really rewriting its story. And I think, you mentioned journalism in what went awry around clickbait. That was a big mouthful right there. And and then the city kind of went through this where tech kind of overcompensated and was a sucking sound of vacuuming up all the ad dollars and eyeballs, and they kind of go hand in hand. And then it created a disparity in the city and a lack of strategy. You said you hope San Francisco bounces. I do too, and I think it is. I think it's got a ways to go with some of the legislative things and bureaucracy. But my question, kind of pivoting back, let's talk about journalism. Do you think journalism bounces? And if it does, what does it look like to be new journalism? Because I don't know if you know this, there's 86 independent daily newspapers left that are not owned by a large corporation or a major CEO.
Wow. 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 I didn't know that. Um, Journalism is challenged more today than ever before. And, um, where again, the facts are disputed, everything can be attributed to fake news, where it's more important than ever. So I think there are um, independent news sources that have to step up and be fiercely independent. And I don't know where it's going to come from. News is so different now as well because they're for some people in their teens and early 20s, they don't know, they never were they never had printed newspapers and or gone, have gone to like these lengthy news sites or watch 60 minutes, or it's really TikTok feeds and people glancing at the news. And so it's just a different packaging and delivery and content that is the news. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this, and maybe through the world of X and TikTok and Instagram. A lot of people get their news on Instagram too. And it's all interesting to me. Wherever people get news, I think is great. I am on all of the communication channels,
Yeah,
and just to kind of compare and contrast. And I like to, if I go on to traditional news sites like CNN, then I'll go and look at Fox. And then if I've been looking at Fox, then I'll go and look at CNN or
good for
CNBC
you.
or Microsoft, just to get a balance. Like I think
Yeah,
because it's gotten much more agendized.
Yep.
News has, news coverage has, and that was one of the great things when I was covering news. It was really, it was Guthrie, keep your opinion out of this. It does not belong in this. We do not have an agenda. Go and get the story, report the hell out of it, and write it up with both sides presented. And that was the norm. And now that's endangered.
Yep.
But I think it's a very resilient field, and it's timeless, it's critical, it's
Yeah.
mission critical right now.
It really is. And you said something too. It's interesting on the new platforms, because tech has created a distribution channel that's massive, right? And the question comes down to how to help people understand the art of legitimized and professional. I don't even know if I like the word legitimized, but I guess ethical storytelling, right? Because we don't have the campfire with our elders anymore. We don't have the Walter Cronkite's. Like we're missing that, and it's turned into thousands of voices, millions of voices, and they don't have a framework except for what gets hearts, likes, rainbows, clicks, subscribers, and it's almost as if we need. I've been talking to a group that has seven of the last dailies, and one of the things we've been talking about is, could they set up a foundation that ensures the longevity of newsrooms of the last 86?
Mm-hmm.
And could that foundation also start to train batches of citizen journalists that could use their distribution channels and potentially even print to have local newspapers pop up all across America again, with people learning how to be, real storytellers that use X, that use Instagram, that use TikTok, but kind of run in the old vibes. And there's something there that is, it's interesting, because it's like, how would tech and old ways of journalism be reborn? And it's almost like that's what has to happen, because it can't be just journalism the old way. It's got to be married to tech the new way.
Right, but I'm not so sure you can. Okay, I'm going to present two contrarian thoughts. One, I'm not so sure you can crowdsource accurate journalism.
Okay.
But then, I mean, this is why, then Twitter was founded to be, crowdsource breaking news and be on the ground floor there. But, it's a very specialized field, and there has to be teaching around it that enables people to tell these stories accurately and comprehensively and independently, based on certain practices, best practices. So it's between, it's some sort of combination, like, because it is a specialized skill, and it's not something that every blogger can get. Even though I'm in favor of now, at these White House press briefings now, they've invited in, some non-traditional. Well, maybe the old school journalists are now non-traditional.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they've invited these different voices in.
Yeah.
But I say that, great, but with a caveat that it's a skill, and you have to be very mindful of it, and it does require training. Just because someone can write doesn't mean they can be a reporter. It's a very different skill.
Yep. It would be interesting to figure out, how do these platforms have trained, verified batches of people who are kind of Guthrie, like, Guthrie, keep your opinion out of it.
Uh-huh.
Like, how do we Guthrie, not crowd journalism, but like excellence in a batch that become kind of like the verified potpourri of, both sides of a story, kind of a thing. It just would be really interesting to really invest in that kind of philanthropic. I don't know if it's philanthropic, actually. If it's done right, I think the platforms can be a leverage point to align with true training of old ways of journalism again, and not just be focused on catching eyeballs. Because I think, I'll tell you a funny story. A friend of mine, I'll leave his name out of it. First name is James. He knows who he is. He was at Daily Mail back in the day, and he was at one of our summits that we host, where we'll bring interesting founders and entrepreneurs from around the world to these different communities that we do social, civic, and economic transformation. Awesome. And James shows up, and he's done a lot of things, but one was at Daily Mail. He digitized Daily Mail. So he's the guy who put it online and really created the system around it. And he pioneered a lot of that tracking of metrics of clicks and time on page, and then tied it to compensation.
Yep.
And then
the direction it was going for sure.
And then the next thing that Daily Mail is known for is, drumroll please, the Kardashians.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the next thing he said he'll never forget, he woke up one time to a phone call from someone at Meta, at Facebook at the time, and they were pissed. And they said, James, what is with this headline that says Facebook gives people cancer? And he goes, I don't know. Let me find out. And so he's scrambling to figure out like what's going on. And he gets to the journalist and he's like, why did you write a headline that says Facebook gives people cancer? And they said to him, well, James, don't you see? This is before mobile phones. More people are spending time on Facebook. He's like, yeah. He goes, so that means that they're going to be inside more. And he goes, okay. Well, that means that they're going to not be as tan because they're not exposed to the sun as much. Okay. Well, then that means they'll get burnt more often.
Oh my!
If they go outside, which then means they'll probably get skin cancer. That literally was like the thoughtful headline and article to just get as many eyeballs, like Facebook causes cancer. That was the headline.
That's crazy. I do think there's, like, to contradict myself with the crowdsourcing thing. I was it was my third book. No, it was my third book. It was I've written 5. So How to Make a Spaceship, which is about the private race to space. And there, the main character, Peter Diamandis, who founded the X Prize, he crowdsourced this private path to space. Or teams, he launched this $10 million prize for the first private team that could build and fly a manned rocket to the start of space twice. And he got all of the mavericks, the off the grid types, Nick, Burt Rutan and the legendary Rutan brothers. But it got all of these think different types, these off the grid, working in the Mojave Desert, working in the jungle in, Brazil on these crazy contraptions that they were going to actually try to fly, to the start of space. And they did. So it makes me think of, like, what if we could crowdsource, like create a new X Prize? I'll have to call Peter. And for the next phase of journalism, like, what can it be, and how could it be successfully crowdsourced? I really like that idea. And on the other side, like what I'm doing now with AI is similar to journalism, is in that it's very specialized. It's not something that does require a lot of training, very methodical, very careful, high, attention span, high levels of training are required. So there's that side to journalism too, and a continuum in terms of what I'm doing in this newish chapter that I'm in now.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit as like a bridge, because I love where this conversation's gone, and I'm super grateful for your time. I know you're slammed, but you're not only a mom, an author, a journalist, a leader in your communities, but you're also now a founder, and you'd spent your whole life writing about founders and leaders and moonshot thinkers, and then one day you're like, you know what, I'm gonna go do it. And
my own moonshot.
Yeah. So tell us about Alfie and kind of the story behind Alfie and how you envision it really impacting, the world in a meaningful way.
So it's I'd written Alpha Girls, my 4th book, about women succeeding in heavily male industries, and I was out kind of on the talking, speaking circuit and doing a lot of talks at big conferences and big stages and small ones. And I was noticing that when very successful, accomplished women would approach, they would often apologize right off the bat. Oh, I'm sorry for taking your time. Could I just have a few minutes of your time? Oh, I'm so sorry. And it made me realize that um, that there are these, which is something I knew, but there are these language patterns that set us forward or set us back. And so I started to think about what we could, what I could do. What's my moonshot? As you said, I'd been surrounded by this. And also, it was at a time when journalism was changing and I'd already accomplished all that I wanted to. So I wanted to do the next big thing. And I'd always believed in the power of bringing kind of the best in the human spirit together with the best in new technology to make impact and transformation. And so started to work on AI, and which was then in the dark ages. We were using BERT Large, open source language model, very different. It was 2 years before OpenAI hit. And I literally started the company by drafting a list of diminishing language that was gendered. And we did
Hmm.
this kind of pattern matching. And so we created our first AI detection label that looked at diminishing language, and it would make a suggested stronger alternative. So from there, we began to look at what language, how do we identify language that's harmful and that's helpful? Flash forward to today, we have built over 40 AI models that detect for all types of harm in digital communication. We've done all of our own proprietary training. I've brought in former skilled journalists. See, there's a thread that continues, who really understand language, who can take an assignment, quote unquote, and um, you know, what is the assignment? How do you define the problem? Who are the experts you need to talk to? Then you start writing the story. And for us, it's writing training sentences, and we now have tens and tens and tens of thousands of training texts and sentences that don't exist anywhere else. So we're detecting everything from for financial services, everything from document tampering to covert off-channel communication. We're working on an antitrust detection system. We created a system to detect unfair lending in real time, rather than wait until the harm has occurred and the discriminatory or predatory lending has happened. It's really the first of its kind, real time, highly accurate. We have accuracy detection rates of between 92 and 99%. We have
Wow.
created detection for things like self-harm on social media. Um, and as I listen to the world today, I don't know if we've been in a time that is as retaliatory, vindictive, and threatening as what we're living through right now, with the language that is out there that used to be extreme, that's now more of the norm, and it's seeped its way into the mainstream.
Yeah.
And so, you think about, the world has grammar check and spell check, and we do harm check. Right now,
Yep.
it's shocking. And we've done these tests. You can sit down and I could Slack an employee something that is threatening, intimidating, racist, bigoted, sexist, unethical, unlawful, whether it's about hiring practices or the like, and you hit send and it goes through. Uh, with our system that we've built, it flags it so that you could self-correct in real time, and if you don't, it can be quarantined. So it's not policing your words. It's really an ally to kind of help you communicate more effectively and keep you and your team and your company out of hot water.
Yeah.
It's been a journey. It's really. I think I think I'm going to write a couple more books after our company is successfully, whatever the exit or whatever the reaching the finish line looks like for us. I think it's going to be good,
Right.
but I do want to write a couple more books, and
Right.
one will be about the myth of the startup, because people don't have a sense of how hard this is. Like, going to kind of an early question, Jensen Huang, what he said. It's maybe, actually, though, maybe it's good that you don't know how hard it is,
Yep.
because There are months where it's been like, this really sucks. This is so not fun,
Yeah.
and this is really hard. And as a solo founder, I just feel so much responsibility all the time. And that goes back to, how are you resilient in your life when you face, there's this boulder you're trying to push up this
Yeah.
really massive hill.
I,
And
I'm
yeah.
having like a weird analogy that jumps into my mind
Oh,
because
okay. Do tell.
yeah, well, I think a lot about like how men often view things versus how the masculine or the feminine view projects. And when it comes to startups, a lot of times guys will use words like you have Sean Parker's words of um, running a startup is like chewing on glass and staring into the abyss and learning to enjoy the taste of your own blood,
Oh, nice.
which is a very masculine way to like
Yes. Yeah.
dominance, and it's like fight back. And then I was having this like first time thought that I'll say because I think it's actually I've known people who've had near miscarriages or miscarriages, and the emotional weight of losing something you love is very different for a female versus a male often, or like the feminine energy versus the masculine. And there's got to be some parallel between like running this thing you love that you want to see birthed into the world, and like it might die this month. Like it is on the edge and it's painful and you're scared because as a guy, like often the response is like, we're gonna fight and win the war. And there's this
This
nurturing,
spirit.
beautiful,
Interesting.
effeminate spirit. Yeah. Like, yeah, I don't know if that hits at all. Tell me about, because you're a mother. I'm not, right? Does
Well,
that
you're
come
a dad,
close?
but it's I think it's a, it's a myth that, that's perpetuated around, you have a startup and you get to unicorn status and everybody's, gotten, this generational wealth payout.
Yeah.
And it's much, much different from that. So I think
Much
about
right.
the team, I think about the responsibility, I think about, um, the North Star of our technology can change the way humans communicate.
Yeah.
If we can reduce harm in the world, I mean, how incredible is that? And
Well, you're
that's what
teaching people how to
I
be
want to do.
powerful. Yeah, like really teaching people how to be powerful and stand in their power and stand in their success and avoid damaging their firm. And that's such an important thing because it's not you mentioned, you're not this isn't like free speech policing. Like there are literally things you can and cannot do at a company.
Exactly.
And this is a new tool set to help a company ensure that employees don't do what they're not allowed to do. I mean, when somebody says, "Well, is this monitoring free speech?" Nope. Like you're not allowed to go into your office and just take a dump in the middle of the lobby. Like you'd be fired. Like that's
Verbally, metaphorically, of course. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's like the same way you can't take a dump with your words. Like this is a tool to block that.
It is. And, but it's a hard journey as a founder. And, this is, and I get, there were too few women founders too, which is what I wrote about with Alpha Girls.
Yeah.
It's still the case where 98% of all venture capital dollars go to male founded firms, startups. And so that means 2%, and this has stayed pretty much the same. It briefly got up to about just under 3% of VC dollars go to women founded firms. So you think about those abysmal, wrong numbers. Like there are, amazing women who have amazing ideas for companies. And so the system needs to change. And for me, it's, I think as a founder, it's a lonely journey. And, early on, I have a lot of great investors, many of whom are really great men, but they gave me advice that was very interesting. Like one piece of advice was, this came from one of these titans of industry who ended up investing, and he's a great guy, but he said, Guthrie, you're going to have to be more mercenary. You're far too kind. And I thought about it and I thought, oh, okay, I have to look at leaders out there and see their characteristics. And, and most of the leaders you immediately find or know of are men. And I think it's a different dynamic of leadership. It doesn't have to be, but I realized I can't be mercenary. That's not who I am. And I don't think that's the most effective way to lead. Um, I think, for me, it's inauthentic. And I realized I can be strong. I can do really hard things. I can, deliver news that people don't like, um, but I can do so with compassion and kindness. And so I've learned a lot about what it takes to be a leader.
Yeah.
And it's a hard journey, but nothing great comes easy. And whether it was journalism or whether it was with my books or now with a company that we're trying to make get to market as a transformative technology.
Yeah.
No, I guess nobody said it was going to be easy, um, but
No.
have to remember, your North Star. What's driving you? What's the story you want to tell? People have that. People are reminded, like, what do you want to have on your, your epitaph? Like, what do you want people to say about you? I mean, I think those questions are interesting to ask yourself every day. And where are
What do
you
you?
applying your time?
Yeah. What do you want on your epitaph? Like from that perspective, you have
Change the way
words.
the world communicates.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No.
What about
And
you? What's yours?
um.
Your what Peter Diamandis calls your massively transformative purpose.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I know my massively transformative purpose. I just don't know how I'd phrase it on my headstone. My thought immediately went to what would be the funniest thing on my headstone, and that actually was
Oh,
my first thought. Um,
but then you put something in parentheses.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think my massively transformative purpose on this earth is to make mentorship normal and
Oh, I
consistent.
like that.
And so I'm trying to bend the arc of economic history and even entitlements to rethink how do we make the experience of learning and growing and doing hard things a currency we exchange with our neighbors and people we like so we can learn from
Yes.
each other. And so yeah, that's my muse, but it really boils down to mentorship. I actually did my senior project in high school on mentorship
Hmm.
and was told by my guidance counselor that's not a job. And so I've kind of just made it my muse to restructure a belief system for the world that we're made to be in relationship, creating hard things that push us over the edge. So we need each other.
Hmm.
And
And we
yeah,
benefit from each other. We benefit others.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I like what you said, by the way. I just want to compliment this that you've held on to leading with feminine power, meaning you didn't try and mask it to be masculine, and you've you've honored yourself and also the feminine power. And
I think I
and
tried it for a short period, and I'm like, this isn't right. This is like
yeah, yeah, it's not you. And
this doesn't work for me.
no, and throughout history, there's seasons and different ways tribes have led with feminine power and masculine power, and wolves are the same way. There's like the alpha wolf, the leader of the pack is a female. I don't know if you know that.
Hmm.
And there's masculine power as well, but the female leads the pack, and it's a different energy, right? And this isn't about. I'm not going to get into like gender and all the other things people would want to like pull apart. But coming down to it, there is feminine power and there's masculine power, and I love that you're honoring that and building a company with it. And you'll have a lot to say to a world that doesn't have elders right now, and that can't communicate well. And so I hope you really do write that book and really own that bridge that you started with Alpha Girls, which wasn't about, you know, about women being like we're better than men. These were just great women who stood in
Right.
their power.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so good at this.
Well, I mean, I have, you're a great friend and you're an ally, and we need um, to be that to one another. I mean, what you're saying, like, make mentorship just a part of our fabric. And I mean, with what we've created, at Alfie, and the technology is called Harm Check, which I love. Um, I don't think. I mean, it's unique because of the different perspective that we have on language,
Yeah.
but it also has a lot. It's not punitive, but it's strong, and but at the same time, there's a belief in the goodness of others to self-correct. Now, if they don't, here comes the strength. It can be quarantined and it can be stopped. So we can surface harm and we can also stop it. But we prefer, we give people the choice. We don't smart compose, we don't autocorrect because we know that that learning happens or behavioral change happens when you do something for yourself. So if these writing tools are doing your writing for you, you are not going to become a better writer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we want to give agency to the individual and autonomy to the individual to grow rather than take over someone's writing and thinking. And so the technology, there's a lot of strength in it and a lot of compassion. And we're learning every day, but we've gotten to a great place. And it's an amazing journey to go on. Even though I talk about the dark days and months, it is an amazing journey. It's a privileged journey to be going on, and we're going to get there.
Well, and you're embodying what I really believe is that we're all called to create something that we believe will add the most beauty and value to the world, and it should have this through line to things that hold deep meaning to us. That
Yes.
and you've done it. Like this is a
Oh,
new.
you too. I mean,
Thank you.
mentoring program in high school and bringing that up and your thread, even though you kind of it takes different shapes, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And in incarnations, but then
it
you
really
keep
does.
coming back to this very powerful, high potential thread that you
Yeah,
keep pulling along, keep advancing.
thank you. And so if people want to learn, by the way, about Alfie, because
Yay, Alfie! I love
yeah,
Alfie.
like I want them to go check it out because your dent the universe is to kind of elevate people's ability to communicate in their power. I would say is the best way to help them communicate for success. And in a lot of ways, it's like my Nick Vomit version of it. And and your version is using AI to improve human communication. Hard stop. Like that's it on the website. And it's alfieco.com, right?
Yes, or you can go to the company's called Alfie and the technology is called HarmCheck. So harmcheck.ai.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. And
That's awesome.
yeah, love to hear from people. Love to continue the conversation. And what a fun talk. My camera didn't participate, but or cooperate. It was trying to participate, but was having an off day. Let's say.
There are worse things in the world. We got to have a really meaningful conversation. And I mean, wide ranging from your life to journalism
I
to,
know, so much
yeah.
fun. Thank you for
Yeah.
the
Is there
conversation.
anything else that you kind of want to, leave everyone with as your kind of
I think it's
thought?
figure out your story, talk to yourself, tell your story, whatever, in the shower or when you're out on a jog or, what is it? And then it takes many shapes. Is it for that moment when you meet somebody who, like I did with in that moment I talked about with Jensen Huang, or you're applying for a job, or you're trying to convince someone to marry you, or you're whatever, or you're like redefining your life at a new stage
Yeah.
and you're going after something different. Like, what is your story? And it's very complex to get to simple, I've learned. So you have to work on it a bit and you have to do a lot of drafts and you have to pare back and then you find it. It's not always just what you blurt out, but it's something you write down, you speak, and you come back to it until it really feels like, yeah, this is it. This is my story in all of its different um, colors and shapes and sizes. And but I'll be ready to tell that uh, when when the time comes.
Yeah.
And then listening to people's stories. Like go out in the world and be like, hey, it's move away from the phone for a little bit and like you do, Nick. It's like meet people in line, on the street. Like, hey, man, what's your story? I love that you do this. Like, find out the stories of those around you and use storytelling to elevate, advance yourself and the the causes and the people you care about.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your wisdom and using your life for really meaningful things and helping us all use our words better and more effectively to win at life. And I love what you're doing with your technology. I can't wait for your new books. And
I might have to wait a little bit, but
hey, they'll come.
it'll be worth the wait.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much.
All right, thanks. That was really fun. Bye.
Bye.